Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of misty morning and focus combination. You know, I love that bergamot and that zing. So good, guys. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, a cup of coffee. If you're interested in any of these teas, go check them out. I'll put a link down below. So today is going to be an interesting one. Today is a Starlink support Q&A. Do you know if? That is always the question that I've been getting. And Starlink is one of those things that I kind of fell into because I needed it. It was a product that was just about my only option when it comes to high-speed access at the studio. When I started with Starlink, it was right around November, and at that time I was using AT&T, and AT&T was providing us 15 meg down and 1.5 meg up. Yes, that's in 2022. Pathetic, AT&T, and I know it. So we don't have access to fat cable, as I call it, or Comcast or someone like that. We do not have access to them. And we do not have fiber at this location either. So using a satellite-based high-speed internet access like Starlink was the way for us to go. And I put in an order 8 months prior to getting it. And once again, I got it right around November, the end of October, somewhere around there. So today I'm going to do some Q&A. I'm going to answer some of the questions that I've gotten in the comments below a lot of the videos that I've done already. And I'm sure a lot of these questions are questions that you have had. Before we get into it, I want to say that if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks as of yet, go check them out. Go over to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Joffrey Kirby asked, what the hell is Starlink? Well, in the last dozen videos, I have answered that. And I also put together a playlist. So if you want to find out more about Starlink, not just here in this Q&A, but head over to that playlist. I'll put a link here, there, elsewhere, maybe in the comments, as well as probably in the description. Go check out that playlist. Everything that you need to know is in there. Also, FBI Fido says, can't you ask them to connect you to the Miami PoP? Now, the PoP is that point of presence that I was talking about in one of my videos on how, even though I am in Palm Beach, for some reason, they are routing me through, instead of Miami, 80 miles away, they're routing me through Georgia. And prior to that, they were routing me through Virginia, which is 1,000 miles away instead of 80. So he was asking, can't you just ask them to route you through the closer PoP? And I did do that, and they did reroute me, but what I'm hearing from a lot of you guys is they're not rerouting people anymore. So maybe my video got out there to too many people and there was too many folks out there asking the exact same question. Can you reroute me because my pings are trash? And now they're pissed. Anyways, I don't think they're doing it anymore. I don't know, but I'll get into that in another video. I have some ideas on how that you can possibly get around this whole thing. So hang in there for that. Next, Michael McDowell says, do you see any difference between Generation 1 and a Generation 2? Should I upgrade or is it not worth it? And honestly, my friend, I don't have a Generation 1 to compare it to. My understanding is they're very similar. The only difference that I get is that there is a size difference. Number one, it's cheaper for SpaceX to build these new Generation 2s. They might see a little bit more of the sky with the Generation 2 than a Generation 1, but there's not too much else that I've read to be different between the two. As far as speeds go, I think the speeds are identical. I don't see any difference, and I haven't heard anyone saying that there's a difference. So if you have a Generation 1, be thankful for it and just stick with that. Maybe when they come out with like a Gen 3 or something, then possibly look into upgrading. They are putting out that corporate version, let's say, which costs well over $1,000 for the equipment and then like $500 a month instead of $100. It's just a lot of people are not going to be able to afford that anyways. Now that dish is bigger and it will see more of the sky, bring in more data, so to speak, and supposedly is faster. So unless you want to spend $500 a month, just stick with your Gen 1. Doug Jamel says, can anyone help? When I go to the starlink.sx site, I mostly get a white screen, and am I doing something wrong? So I know some people are going to say, well, what is Starlink SX? Well, Starlink SX is a site. It's a third-party site, not affiliated with SpaceX, not affiliated with Starlink proper. It is a site that shows you where satellites are at any given time and where the ground stations are and the PoPs are from SpaceX or from Starlink. All right. So, and it's in a real-time movement or motion, so you can see what's going on. And what he's saying is he can't see anything. He's getting this white screen. Now, I've heard other people having the same problem. My suggestion is make sure that you're not using some type of VPN in the background that's cloaking your IP, number one. Try a different browser also. When I did my video and you saw me using Starlink SX, if you guys haven't seen it yet, check out some of my other videos. Once again, go over to that playlist. I was using Google Chrome. So try Firefox, try Microsoft's browser, try whatever. Try something else, Safari if you're using a Mac, and see if Starlink SX pops up. Next, Tim B says, can you do more live Starlink Q&A in the future? Absolutely. Matter of fact, as of Friday, I think, yeah, about 2 days from now, I believe, Friday, I'm going to be doing a live with someone else. This is going to be a great one overseas in Australia, and we're going to be doing an astrophotography and Starlink combined type of video. So don't miss that. That should be a hell of a lot of fun. So check that out. Once again, that is Friday. I think the live broadcast is going to be right around 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So watch out for that. Now, Tom McNapp says, can I create a mesh network using the Starlink as an ISP? And yes, I did an entire video on mesh networks. Once again, check that out. Maybe I'll put a link up here. That's what the thumbnail looks like. I did a whole video basically on creating a mesh network while leaving the Starlink router in the loop. So check that out. A lot of good information in there. JP says, do you have a list of Starlink equipment and accessories that you are currently using? Yes, in all of my videos, like I said, there's about a dozen. Check in them in the description. You should see a list of all of the equipment that I'm using, or check the pinned comment on all those videos. I have a link to my managed switch that I use, as well as router and the external as well as internal APs or access points for my mesh networks and whatnot. So all of the accessories that I use for Starlink is in the description. Check out those links. Lenny Garvar says, very interesting. What's it like living in a world of milliseconds and speed of light? Musk now refers to himself as Techno King. Perhaps you could be the prince of load balancing. I love that. Yeah, no, I am not a prince of load balancing. I can do some more videos on load balancing and how to use smart managed switches and how to shape traffic through them. A lot of people like that kind of information on how to say, well, I only want my kid to use the data for this period of time, or only this much of it, or at this specific time, or if I'm doing a Zoom conference, no one else could use the internet, and you can do that through a managed switch. So I can do some more videos on that. As far as being a prince, I don't swing that way. Anyways, going on, Willie D says, could you give me more of a class on Starlink SX and other tools and how it works? Well, once again, Starlink SX is a third-party website, and it's not supported by SpaceX or by Starlink. So I use this site as only one tool. There's a lot of other tools that I use, but if you want me to give you more information on what I do to be able to do speed tests as well as routing and see what's going on behind the scenes, I could definitely make a video about that and maybe deep dive into the subject. Let me know if there's interest. Comments below. Homero Gonzalez says, Joseph, superb job. Look out, Elon may come knocking at your door to hire you. Yeah, no. Elon only hires geniuses. I mean, I'm at like 146, 148 IQ. That is not on the level that Elon is looking for. But if he ever came knocking, I would definitely say yes, because I love the company and I do love what they're doing over there. And I would probably take on a job in just about any capacity. Next, Chuck says, when I use whatismyip.com, it shows my correct general geographic area unless I am going through a VPN. Yep. Exactly. Is it possible that you have VPNs running? Pretty weird that your IP geolocates to a totally different state. Something strange is going on here. Good luck. Chuck was responding to a video that I did on how the IP addresses that you get through Starlink are from the location of the PoP, or point of presence, that you're currently associated with. So, for example, right now, my association is with a PoP out of Georgia. Why? I don't know. But it is associated with Georgia instead of Miami. Georgia's like 700 miles away. Miami's 80 miles away. They'll figure it out eventually. But since it's associated with Georgia, the IP address that I have is a Georgia IP address. Period. Now, if my router was linked to Virginia, I would have a Virginia IP address. Every once in a while, if I reboot and it attaches to Miami, I will get a Miami IP address. That's just how it works. Sorry, Chuck. That's how it works. Next, Roger Peterson says, where can I order Starlink from? Starlink.com. Go check it out. It took me about 8 months for me to get mine, but go and order it. The sooner, the better. Frank says, I have a question about the managed switch. This is a managed switch that I was showing in one of my videos. Are you only able to control data that is hardwired, or can you also control data to Wi-Fi equipment through the IP address or another way? I will be, as of now, Wi-Fi access only to all of my devices. My kids' gaming tablets and phones connect through Wi-Fi and would like to prioritize the data amounts. Thank you. Well, the answer to that is kind of yes and no. Yes, the data that is going out of the Starlink router into that switch, that data is what the switch is going to be able to manage. So the hardwire out, you're going to be able to shapeshift, let's say, be able to shape that traffic. The Wi-Fi coming out of the Starlink router, you cannot shape. So if you need to shape Wi-Fi traffic, you're going to need another router because Starlink doesn't provide you that service. It's a very basic router with almost no functionality at all. It's all internal and you can't do anything with it, or very minimal. Now, there's two things that you could do. Number one, take that Starlink router out of the mix completely and install your own router. The other way is to put your Starlink into bridge mode, essentially with a simple switch through your application, and then use your other router. I would say check out a router that is maybe a Wi-Fi 6, a brand new one that's an AX router, and that has QoS, or quality of service functionality, so you can data shape. All right? Hopefully that helps. Terry McIntosh says, Starlink offers no email server. Why is no one mentioning this? Does no one use email? Does anyone using Starlink also keep their old ISP service for their email, paying to ISPs? What is going on here? Well, Terry, that is kind of the case. A lot of the smaller ISPs are not even offering email anymore. Email is a big hassle, and when you have companies like Gmail and Outlook and other cloud-based companies offering email, a lot of these ISPs are no longer doing it. My suggestion is get a cloud-based email service, kind of like Outlook or maybe Gmail or whatnot, and call it a day. Josh T says, how do you know if you are getting a Generation 1 or a Generation 2? Well, Josh, you don't. Not until it shows up and you have a picture on the side that is either a round dish or a rectangular dish. Rectangular, Generation 2, round, Generation 1, but you just simply have to wait. Now, as of November 2021, they started shipping out Gen 2s. So chances are, if you ordered after that time, you're going to get a Generation 2 no matter what, unless you're in the Ukraine. And then you'll get Generation 1s. Next, Francis Murphy says, how much is Starlink paying you to talk all this shit? Sadly, my friend, they're not paying me anything. Unlike a lot of YouTube shills out there, I am not. So I kind of call it as I see it. I give you the information as it comes in, and we share this information back and forth. I'm not a guru or genius here. I just got it in November of last year, so I'm giving you all of my experience. But I wish they would pay me. Maybe you can do something about that, Francis. Old Vietnam veteran says, I have a Netgear R9000 router. Do you think this would be okay? After spending about $400 on it, I would hate to have to buy another. Well, the 9000 is an AC router. It is not an AX. So you're not going to get Wi-Fi 6 out of it. So if you don't need the little bit extra speed that you're going to get out of Wi-Fi 6 or the added security, that AC router that you have, the 9000 version, is more than sufficient to either replace the Starlink router or to use it as a secondary router by putting the Starlink router into bridge mode. JMax says, can I use a used Starlink and bypass the waiting list and use it in different locations? Well, Starlink is set up so that it is geo-locked. So when you buy a Starlink, they ask you what your address is, and that is where that unit is locked down to. So if you buy a used one, I think that the problem that you're going to have is contacting Starlink to have them move it to your address. Contacting Starlink as of late has been very difficult for a lot of people. I've still been able to get through old messaging, but finding a means of sending a message to Starlink is not as easy as it looks, and I could probably do a video just on that, and I'm sure a lot of people would like that. Next, Fred Keller says, in this video, you disabled the Starlink functionality in the GUI by bypassing its router. What issue is there with just removing the Starlink router and plugging your own router directly into the dish Ethernet via the Starlink power brick port? Well, if you have a Generation 1, you don't have to go through the port. Generation 1, you do have an auxiliary port on the back of it, so you can connect a hard wire, call it a cat cable, right into the back of your router. If you have a Generation 2, then you would need to buy a brick, an Ethernet little brick that splits your signal, so you end up with an Ethernet adapter. So can you use another router instead of the router that comes with Starlink? Yes, you can. You do lose some functionality, for example, the application itself and checking out like what is going on with it, making it stow itself or lock into place, and a lot of other functionality. So I personally don't recommend it, but you can. The other way to do it is simply putting the router that you have into bypass mode or into, as it really is, bridge mode, and then use another router off it. Either which way. By doing it that way, you leave the Starlink router in the mix, but once again, you don't have to. And your miles may vary because some people that have used really high-end Wi-Fi 6 or AX type of routers that are $200–300 or more are getting even faster speeds than they were with the Starlink router. So it's something for you to test out. Next, Rumpelstiltskin, I love that name, says, what would you suggest for gaming on first-person shooters? I currently average 150 down and 20 up and about 50 to 60 millisecond ping on the Starlink Gen2 router. I have the network split into 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. My console is connected through the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi. Can I get even better than that? That is a really good question. Now, when it comes to first-person shooters, the problem is you do not have consistency with anything that is satellite-based. As of right now, there is some downtime, whereas you get little spikes, let's say of 2 seconds down and 5 seconds down and a second down and whatnot. Your milliseconds, yeah, 50 to 60 isn't too bad for a first-person shooter. I'd like to see 20 milliseconds, 30 maximum, but even at 50, it's still good enough to be able to game. Now, the only thing that I see here that could be changed is you're currently connecting your gaming console through the 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi signal. Now, if the signal is really strong and your router is really close to the console, there's probably not going to be any issue with speeds or any kind of glitching. But if the router and the console is in different rooms and you're going through walls and maybe the walls have metal studs instead of wood studs and other possible connection problems, well, Wi-Fi is still not the best way to go. Always hardwire your gaming console. Always hardwire your gaming PC. Hardwire will give you the best connection. So use a Cat 5, a Cat 6, a Cat 8, whatever. Use a Cat cable and connect directly from your Starlink router into your console. That is your best bet. Check it out. You might end up getting better milliseconds, better pings basically, maybe even faster speeds. Definitely do it. It's worth it. Next, Tony Marcato says, do you have any connection to SpaceX and can you help expedite my order? Sadly, no, my friend, no. Anyways, there is a lot more questions, but I'm going to have to end it here. If you have questions in the comment area below this video, put those questions and I will try to answer them in a future video. Did you like this type of content? If you do, please throw it a thumbs up so I know that, yes, I should be making more of this. Also, if you're not subscribed as of yet, please subscribe and click this little bell icon here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you will be notified immediately. And finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools that I've invented for you and me over the years, and hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. Don't forget, Friday, we will be live. Be here or be square, probably right around 11 a.m. So that's it, guys. I'm out of here for another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one. Love you all.